and welcome to The Tea, a talk show hosted by our diverse panel of military spouses having real and relatable conversations about life. And tonight's episode is the realest yet and a much needed one. Racial biases. Do they exist in the military spouse community? We want to know. What are your thoughts on that? All right, let's go ahead and I want to ask this question to our panel. Let me bring these lovely ladies here on screen and let's get ready to talk about it. Do racial biases exist? I want to know, ladies, if you think they exist, raise your hand. Do racial biases exist within the military spouse community? You put your hand down? Okay, do you think racial biases exist in the world? Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. Look, I know before we get too deep in this conversation, I know that sometimes we feel like, especially within the military spouse community, no, these things don't happen. You do live in the world. You do have life outside of the military, right? So if we think that biases happen within the world, they also happen within the male spouse community. And I know, we're like, but it's never happened to me, or I don't see it happening, or I don't understand. Let me ask you, what does racial biases? Give me an example. What does give of racial blah blah blah. I can't talk. Racial biases. Anyone? Oh, Julie, I'm sorry, girl. I have the logo covering your face. Let me remove that. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
I can answer a question. I guess it would be like assuming something about someone just because of their race and just kind of judging them or making a decision or treating them a certain way because of their race. Right?
Grace.
Same question.
I'm going to go to our lovely conversation starter, Grace.
Am I answering the same question? What is a racial bias?
Yes.
I think a racial bias, in plain and simple example, is if you have two people who look different, especially their skin color, and the situation is different for each one of them. If I'm standing in a line and the person next to me standing in line and they are a different color, and we got there at the same exact time, there's no difference whatsoever, and the other person is going to get served first with a different attitude than what I'm going to get. That is a clear racial bias to me because they have their own preference. I'm so sorry. Hold on. You're going to have to go to someone else. I have crazy noise in the background.
It's okay. It's okay. Look, I have crazy noises over here and my Wi-Fi is being crazy. And I'm like, no, I did not want this conversation to have all the crazy mayhem going on in the background. But hey, this is real life. This is what happens when you go live. And I'm all about coming to you live and just real and raw. And that's what we do here at Male Spouse Conversations. All right, y'all, I'm over here struggling again. Anna. Can you tell us your definition of racial bias? Yes, I'm going to put you on the spot because I just want to hear your response.
Well, I mean, it's exactly what everybody said. It's making assumptions based on a person's race and how you are going to act or treat another race is what it is to me. Now, I will say that when you had brought up the whole topic and you used the word microaggression, I had to look that up, and that was actually very enlightening. So if somebody doesn't know what microaggression, am I using the word right? Is that the word you used? Microaggression in the workplace. That was an interesting topic to read about. That was very enlightening for anybody. So yes, I think it does exist.
Are you talking about one of the posts within our group about microaggression? Is that what you're referencing? Because I didn't say anything about microaggression. No,
you something you had said.
Talking about one of the.
Yeah, in one of our chats. That's where I heard the term, because I didn't hear it on my own. Did anybody else not see that?
Microaggressions.
That's okay. We'll talk about microaggression another time. But okay, so just to help everyone out, because I was like, let me look to see what Webster has to say about racial biases. Racial biases are a form of implicit bias, which refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect an individual's understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. And I know a lot of times we say we have biases. We all are biased at some point in our lives, right? Like, I'm biased towards certain brands, certain grocery stores. I will admit to that. I am. But when it comes to racial biases, I feel like we have to be careful, because those biases then turn into microaggressions that can turn into racism. Do you guys think that having biases also means that someone is racist?
I think racial bias kind of shows a little bit of unintentional racism. And I say that in the fact if someone may not truly in their core be racist, they don't really have anything against the race per se, but they're maybe just them not realizing what they're saying or what they're doing or how they're acting, how that's affecting or coming off can make the person on the receiving end feel like it's a little racist, even, and that's where you slide into, I think, that racial bias. It's going from those biases. I don't know. It's like a thin line. I feel like, if a person is continuously saying and doing things, then I feel like you're gonna lean towards maybe that person is a little racist. But if it's like a once in a while unintentional kind of funny thing, I feel like those kind of slip by, but I think it's a very thin line to walk.
Yes. And I think that's why having these type of conversations are so important. I know having any kind of racial discussions, it can be uncomfortable. And look, I'll tell you, even as a Black lady, it's uncomfortable to have, but I feel like these conversations are needed. Because if we're not talking about it, then how are we going to move beyond other people's thoughts and opinions of you, right? So I'm going to ask my melanin conversation starters first. Yep. And look, we're all lined up on the same line. I did not do that intentionally. That was
Did you do that on purpose, Sybil? You segregated us, Sybil.
I What areas of your life have you experienced racial biases? Or have you? Do you feel like you have experienced any racial bias?
No, I'm sure. Yeah, probably everybody has. So yeah, I think I have experienced it, just the bias part. Yeah.
I have, and I think
Do you have
I'm
any particular example? Because and the reason that I'm asking you that is because I think for people, because again, it's implicit. So some people don't even realize that they're making these bias assumptions.
Well, sometimes I guess that sometimes I'm mistaken for different races and stuff like that. So people have like a stereotype for me, like, oh, if they think I'm Spanish, or if they think that I'm, and I have a Spanish last name, but or if they think sometimes maybe about my hair texture or something like that, just this like, oh, your hair, is it dry? You can't wash it every day and all that. Like, I wash my hair every day, but it's just stuff like little things, I guess, that people, they want to relate to you, or maybe sometimes people talk to me in a certain way. Like, hey girl, what's up? I was kind of like hip hop tone. I'm like, okay, like I can get like that, but I'm not like that right now. So I don't know. Like, we're in a workplace environment, and I feel like, young body over here is not who I want to be representing. And they're just talking to you like saying all this slang. And I'm usually like, okay, I'm very taken aback. Like, how am I supposed to respond to this? It's totally different if you're in an environment, back at home or something. You know how sometimes some people have a southern accent, but at work they might be very proper, but as soon as they get around their family, it just comes right out. You're like, well, I didn't know you was from down south. But it's the same thing. But I don't have to actually say anything for people to assume that I talk like that. That's the point. I could just be standing there minding my own business. It's like, hey, homegirl. Like, I haven't called anybody homegirl in a long time. You know what I mean? It's just weird. So I would say little
Look,
things like that. Probably.
so little things. Okay. So our Facebook user had said that at her place of employment. And yeah, that happens quite often. That is a place for sure that there's a lot of racial biases. But great. Have an experience you would like to share?
Yeah, I was like kind of running through things. I feel like there's been several just along the way for me, very minor, and then like, just different levels of them. But I think one that gets me every single time is I can be in a group of people and no one knows me really, like, I'm brand new to the group or whatever, and we'll go somewhere. Say we go to a Mexican restaurant, right? We're gonna go eat. The server comes up and speaks Spanish. Everybody at the table will literally straight to me, waiting for me to respond to
Like,
their
expect
service.
you to know, like,
Expecting me to then be the translator of the entire group.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know these people, right? I'm going to a spouse social, or I'm going somewhere brand new trying to meet people, and they don't know me, and they just automatically look at me and wait for me to answer and help everybody out. And that's one of the things that bothers me the most. And I'm like, why? Because I'm brown. Like, that's literally the only reason why you looked at me, because you don't know. I never spoke Spanish in front of you. I've never had a conversation in Spanish in front of you, but because of the color of my skin, you automatically turned to me.
I have had that happen to me. A lot of people think that I'm Hispanic, and I've had, when I go to check out somewhere, like for instance, at a 7-Eleven, the person at the checkout just started speaking to me in Spanish, and then she looked at me, she's like,
Anna.
Yes. All the time, people ask me
if people think you're Hispanic.
Yes, especially if my hair is down and curly. I have people come up to me and talk to me in Spanish all the time. I'm like, no say.
Yes. You don't see it?
Okay, 1 second. We're gonna take a quick commercial break.
On that
note. Hold on 1 second. We'll be right back. folks, right back. All right, we want to pause for a second and give a special thank you to our sponsors, USAA and Make Me Awesome. They are here helping us bring Meal Spouse Conversations. We have so much more to offer you than our talk show. We host events virtually and in person to continue real and much needed conversations about all aspects of life. So go to our website, mealspouseconversations.com, click on that sponsors link, and find out all about the convolicious, fabulous sponsors, USAA and Make Me Awesome. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Look, I am now going to go to a row. I'm going to tell you about some bias, and then I'm going to go back to our other conversation starters. So I have experienced biases from one in particular, and it hurts me to my core. And that we have moved into a neighborhood and had people, or particular neighbor, this has been a few years ago, ask us, how did you find out about this neighborhood? Excuse me? We were the only Black people in that neighborhood, but there were a lot of assumptions made about my family before they even got to know us. And I'm always mindful and look, I'm just going to say it because I have to say it. There have been times, and this is where I think having biases can become very dangerous, right? There are a lot of assumptions, biases made about Black men. And I see it. Oh, a Black man walking down the street. Well, who cares? Oh, call security. No, do not call security. Because I feel like sometimes our biases against minorities, it escalates, right? And you're making these assumptions based on what? I don't know. And as Nashida was talking about, I'm a Black woman with naturally curly hair, big hair. It grows throughout the week, right? And I'm very passionate when I talk about things, but there's these biases. Oh, angry Black woman. Nah, I'm just passionate about what I'm talking about. I'm passionate about talking about my dog, kids, about race issues in America. Hey, I'm just talking. You fine. I promise. I'm not gonna punch you in your throat. That's only on Thursdays. Actually, today is Thursday. So, and then when I say punch you in the throat, so I have this whole little segment of called Throat Punch Thursday. I'm not literally punching anybody. It's just releasing the frustration. But anywho, let me go to Miss Julie.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us any areas that you have noticed or aware of with racial biases. Oh, I have another one. Julie.
Okay. Uh-oh. You're frozen. You froze. Or am I frozen?
No, I think Nashida and Sybil are frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I will say, just to fill in the space, I get.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear
You
Julie.
hear us?
But I didn't hear your second question
Yeah.
because you froze.
Oh, I was asking you, Julie. Can you hear me? This Wi-Fi is trash, y'all. I am so sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
I am like, come on, do not act crazy on me. Have you noticed any areas of racial biases? Like, do you believe? I know you raised your hand that you do think that there are some racial biases, but
You mean?
do you have any examples that you are aware of?
I know that, like, I've noticed when it comes to looking at schools, there's definitely like based on the makeup of the school, a school might be like, well, that's not a good school, just based on the makeup of a school. And this is something that I didn't really realize till recently, but like, especially with military spouses moving, you want to find a good school for your kids. And so what does a good school mean? What is that? When people are asking, I'm looking for a good school, what does that mean? And realizing that sometimes that means that it's not, there's only kind of one lighter color.
Julie, you can say it. It's full of
Okay.
white people. That's
Yes,
what it is. They're looking for
Yes.
a white school. It is what it is.
Yeah, and even it's something I've really noticed the last few years, and it's like, oh yeah, like what does that mean when people are asking? Because it doesn't necessarily mean like, and really, I mean, this could go on and on about like, okay, well, each of the schools, are they getting the same amount of money? Are they getting the same funds? Are they getting the same services? Is the reason that white school is rated so high is because they're getting more money? Like, it's a lot, but it's just like interesting and sad to like really realize that.
Their property taxes are high
Yeah.
or something like that. It
But it
has
happens.
to do with demographics, yeah,
It
and home
happens. We
ownership.
have moved, and I was going to mention that, Julie. Yes, those because I was going to mention that example with the school, Julie, because we moved again, military move. We moved to an area. I questioned, I'm like, hey, I have some questions about the school, and I did not have a picture of myself, just a stock photo as my Facebook profile, and people's responses, oh, I wouldn't send my kid there, da da da, and it was crazy. Just crazy responses. Like, okay, I waited a little bit. Then I changed my profile picture to myself. All right. Everything you said. And I'm like, oh. And so I did go out to remember names. I had with the group spouses, and one of the ladies who responded was at that lunch. And hi, do you remember me? You responded on my post, because then it was, oh, but your kids would be fine. Your kids would be okay there. I was like, oh, okay. But anywho, Lori, I want to hear what you got to say about this.
Well, where I've seen it, what I see.
Or do you think it exists? Is it all in the melanin folks' heads?
Well, we all have melanin in our skin. I definitely think it exists.
Okay,
And
well,
I think it exists also I'll give you two things. One, I think it exists also where people think that they can make fun of white people too because they're white, and that they have a right to do so because they're not.
You
So I
said
think
make fun of. I don't make fun of white people.
you make fun of me all the time, and I love it. But I think it's because I'm a dork, not because I'm white. But I also see it in job applications, and most notably, one of the best people who has ever run a gym in the history of the Air Force. He applied for several positions, but because his name indicated his race, he was rejected. And as soon as he changed it, he used his middle name, he was all of a sudden getting interviews. So I think that there's a lot of bias there, and that really ticked me off, because just why? You don't know, he clearly had the best application. He was the most qualified. So I saw that, and my husband saw that because he was also the one who hired him. But yeah.
Yeah. Names, right? Because
Mhm.
I will tell you, when we had our kids, when we had our daughters, I thought about their names. Like, I thought long and hard about that, right? Because I'm like, oh, I don't want any indicators that right off Jump Street there's any biased decisions made. So, how do you ladies, and you shared a little bit earlier, so let me go back to you and ask you about, have you noticed any areas where racial biases happen?
Yeah, and I grew up in the mountains of Virginia, and you would see it all the time, and I was never raised like that, and so I get awkward around it because I worry that people automatically assume that I have these racial biases, and I don't. So then I get awkward. I'm like, well, how do I make sure people know I don't have racial biases? And then I just get awkward. So that's how I kind of experience it. But I definitely experienced it as a kid, and I didn't understand it at all. I just witnessed it, but I didn't really understand it, and I didn't go along with it. I really resisted it too. So it definitely exists for sure, and like you said, everywhere. It's in the world. It's everywhere. So how do you handle it?
And I think a lot of it comes from people just not knowing other cultures and not having the pleasure of growing up in like a completely mixed neighborhood and learning about other people's cultures. And some of their probably innocent questions might come off as bias or racist, but they're truly like, well, I don't know. I was just asked. So I think there's a little bit of that too, where people just need to get to know each other. Go talk to your neighbor. That's the glory of a military base, is there is a huge mixture. So go and make friends with every single person, like get to know people.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
agree with
Have
Lori.
conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Have those
Mhm.
conversations.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree with Lori. I think there's innocence
Yeah. And
in a lot of
Lori
it
and
that come out. Oh, and I also think there's intentional also. I think like there's both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
For sure.
Sorry, Sybil. I think your internet's lagging, so we keep
Yeah.
talking over each other.
yeah, it goes both ways. And I think he said, I'm like, come on, Wi-Fi. This is a very important conversation here. And I'm even hardwired in, but I don't know. I don't know what's up with this Wi-Fi. But anywho, Lori said a word, and Miss Young said a word. Miss Young was actually a guest here on the show last year, but that word ignorance.
Mm.
I'm not calling people ignorant. I'm not saying you're ignorant, but I am saying there's a lot of ignorance in the world when it comes to race. And even having this talk tonight, I was nervous, y'all. I'm nervous even now, has conversation, because there's so much that needs to be said about race. But people are afraid to just sit and have those real conversations. But they're needed. If you don't talk about it, and I know people are like, oh, well, we don't have to talk about it. It'll go away. No. A lot of people's actions, whether it's, something from someone in line, dismissing, asking crazy questions, or their response to, someone been dangerous. People's biases literally take hold of them, and it can turn deadly. You can be hurt. Well, we'll start with been misunderstood, hurt, or killed. And I will say it. Look, I'm just going to say, been married to a Black man. That has actually been a fear for me for the last few years, right? Because I'm like, I don't want anyone to have any biases toward Black men. Oh, and my husband is a runner. He goes out running every day. I'm not running with him because I am not a runner. Y'all already know that. But, I'm like, I would hate for someone to have a bias toward Black men. Oh, he's a danger. Nah, he's just out here for a jog, minding his business. He probably doesn't even see you, right? He's just out for his jog. So that's why it's important for me to have these type of conversations. And I wanted to have these conversations last year, but again, it's a hard conversation to have. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but we need to have them.
I remember when we moved to the last place we went to, and my husband had been there for a few months before I got there. And so I was on the back porch, it's still during COVID or whatever, so you kind of keep your distance. And our neighbor was like, oh, hey, I was just outside in the back, like, I don't know what I was doing back there, but he was like, oh, are you the cleaning lady? That was like, cleaning lady be in the house? I was like, what? And then I realized, like, hey, I'm not the cleaning lady.
I'm his daughter.
I know, right? I should have been like, no, I don't speak English. I don't know. I just should have played dumb or something. I don't know. He's like, are you the help? I'm like, no. I'm the mistress of the house. I don't know what's happening.
I agree with Miss Young.
Yeah.
Like, no.
It shouldn't be uncomfortable.
You gotta talk about it.
I am the mistress of the house.
But it is.
Right.
I think it's uncomfortable because most people don't actually think that they're like that. We all think I'm not like that. But then once you start hearing people tell their story, and then you kind of think, oh, I've done that, or oh, I've said that, oh, I've, then that's really uncomfortable because then you're like, am I racist? Am I, is it me? You know what I'm saying? I think that's very uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then for the people who were triggered by, like, some people who've been on the other side of it and been the the focal point of the racial bias, it's uncomfortable because it's a trigger point. Mm-hmm. Like for me, I really just like to let that stuff slide off. I don't really like to care about it too much. I don't like to sit around and care about it too much. Oh, it happened. I'll move on with my life. But then when you have to talk about it, it kind of makes you kind of relive those moments that you thought you forgot. You thought you didn't care. You thought it didn't matter because you skipped right past it. But now somebody's bringing it up. They're telling their story. You're like, yeah, I went through that too. And it can pull up a lot of emotions on both sides. I think that's why it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, I think it's uncomfortable because nobody wants to have any racial biases. And so you realize at some point in your life, every single one of us has done it at some point to somebody. And then you're like, hey, man. But it doesn't mean you're racist. It just means you were ignorant in that situation. You didn't know, you were learning or something. But then if you continue, like Sybil said, to go down that road, then you might be a racist and you might want to check that out and look at it.
You might want to check that out.
Yeah, get that checked out.
Get that looked at by a professional.
Check yourself. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, hey, am I? Because, as Lori said, we all have some biases, right? Mm-hmm. We do. Like, Lori, I'm like, can Lori dance? She like that, and I know, and that's bad too, right? Because as Rashida was talking about,
that's a hard no.
Certain
that
things.
Actually,
it's a hard no.
It's a correct assumption.
It's a hard no.
But I
The
had
complete
that.
stop.
That's funny.
Sorry.
Yeah,
See, there's
for me,
stereotypes.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's stereotypes that are real,
Yeah.
but if you take it to an offensive level, then it's not okay. But they're stereotypes for a
bias,
reason
yeah.
because they're real.
Yeah, I think there's definitely stereotypical situations,
Yeah.
you know, that people just fall into.
You
You
just
joke
said my
about them, you
queen,
talk
sit
about
back.
them. Yeah, and then there's the bias, which I really feel is like the action towards
Yeah.
someone, right? Like my restaurant example. That bias was that looking at me for that
Yeah,
response.
looking at you.
Now if someone was like, "Hey, do you speak Spanish?" before we got there, you know, that's just being curious, right? Like, I'm brown, do you speak Spanish? Fine, whatever. Like, you're just asking me. But making that assumption and putting an action behind it, that's when
like
it kind of gets
they're like
into
putting
that
you on the
bias.
spot,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
something
That's
that
when it-
Yeah, so there's that curiosity, that wondering. Ask me questions. I don't care if you ask me like that. That doesn't bother me. But when you're putting action behind it in a public setting or because of my skin color, like that's when it starts to get a little like, you know.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, because
The
Grace,
bias is
I
putting
think I have
action.
asked you questions before. I think because yeah. And I
You
have
froze.
regular conversations with Julie,
It's like
and
because
we have race discussions, and I'll, hey, Julie, and can y'all hear me, or is it breaking up again?
It's just breaking up all
It's
your
breaking
words.
up.
What's going on?
You just said and it. That's like
We
all
got-
the
we
middle
got
words are
pieces.
missing.
We got all the articles in there, and that's about it.
Yeah.
You should get a Wi-Fi extender.
Look, she froze. Look at her face. She was like,
Oh my goodness.
You keep
What
freezing.
is up with this Wi-Fi?
You should
It's
get a
your
Wi-Fi
computer.
extender.
It's plugged into my router.
It's your computer. You need to close some windows or something
I'm like,
because you
this
don't plug
is an
in. You're not on
important
Wi-Fi, baby. You're on the Ethernet cord. It's your computer, honey.
No,
That's
I
not,
have no
that's
windows.
not
I
the
have no
Wi-Fi,
windows.
CT.
I have no, I have all the windows closed. So StreamYard, I changed
No,
the
not
name,
that.
and
The
I know
windows on your screen and your
no, all
your-
my windows
like,
are
I don't have
closed.
windows closed, girl.
Yeah,
I'm
they're
talking
all
about your
closed.
computer.
Your computer windows.
No, I'm talking about my
I thought that's
computer
what she's
too.
talking
I have no windows. The only thing that is opened on my computer is StreamYard, but I upgraded,
Lord.
and it said that you have to have a strong internet connection, which I have an extender, and I did a hardwire in, and I'm like, why is it doing this?
Oh,
But
the internet coming in your
it's
wall is
literally
like a
like
little bit of
every
trash.
day at this time. Every day
Please
at
don't
this
come from the
time,
internet company.
everyone in my neighborhood had a problem with their Wi-Fi, and I'm like, no, Wi-Fi, work, don't do this to me. But anywho, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. But you can continue this discussion with us in our private, intimate room. We'll continue this conversation in March for our virtual event, The Conversation. And we would love to have you join us. Those are not streamed live. It is closed. You come behind the scenes and chat with the conversation starters. And we will continue the talk about racial biases. All right?
Yeah,
That
you can say
will be in March.
Don't be
But
offended.
yes,
Yeah,
you
you
can
can
say what you got to say.
We're not gonna be offended.
It is
That's
all
right.
good. And ask your questions. So make sure you look for that registration. But in the meantime, on February 23rd, the fabulous Miss Grace Romo. Give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up. She is going to host us in a workshop format for The Conversation, which remember, it's closed behind the scenes. You must register, come behind the scenes and chat with us. And she is going to help you chat with you, and it's going to be your future self will thank you. Look, I'm going to grab my teacup, my paper,
Yeah, my
and
future
pencil,
self says she'll be
and
there.
take notes.
There you go, Nishita.
She'll be waiting on you.
Yes. And you will need to register, and that registration will be open on our website, millspouseconversations.com. You can find that on tomorrow, Friday, February 3rd. So if you're watching the replay, just go ahead and go to the website, millspouseconversations.com, and register. And we're going to do an early bird special.
Oh,
Okay?
I like the specials.
Right, folks? I got to figure out this Wi-Fi because I cannot have this.
You need to get you some more RAM.
Keep
I don't know
doing
what's
this
going
to
on with
me.
your computer.
I might have to produce next conversation.
Right, keep watching.
The computers.
Have a good night.
Stick her out when it freezes.
See you later.
Good night. Good
Like,
night.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm hitting end broadcast. This is live TV.